I'm Chris Shapiro, and this is Retro Pulse Music. On the show today is one of my favorite guys in rock and roll. He's a Grammy-nominated artist. He's had top tens with his singles, with his albums. His albums have gone gold, platinum, multi-platinum. He's the founder and lead singer of one of the most iconic rock and roll bands of the 80s, Great White. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Jack Russell. Jack, how are you, brother?
I'm doing really good, man. How about yourself?
We're hanging in there, man. So you're playing in Changes this weekend, or actually this Thursday in Newcastle. So we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. You know, it's funny. Newcastle is like such a well-known name. You know, especially when I was drinking. You know, I mean, back when I was drinking, that was like what I drank. Now I'm playing there, so that's great, you know.
Yeah, and then you also got another show coming up in Pittsburgh, I think in December, actually, December 8th. And I love that you're playing this area, you know, that's awesome. What is it about this area that keeps bringing you back? You know, are the fans, are they that great, you know, that you keep coming out?
Well, you know, yeah, I mean, it's a great area. I mean, it's definitely, you know, the home fire is just so burning for rock and roll there, you know. It's just a great place. I mean, that's funny, my wife was originally from Pittsburgh, and that's where she was born at. And she just went back to see her grandmother back there. She just got back, and I thought that's kind of cool. I'm going back there to play, you know. So she's gonna try to make it out to the show and I come out there as well. But yeah, it's a great area, man. I mean, it's a great area. It's beautiful. You know, the people are great. You know, like I said, it's definitely a hotbed for rock and roll still.
Yeah, you know, I'm glad that we are, because I love having you out this way, man. I'll tell you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, man. You know, it's always good to play for people that, you know, that love the songs and love the music, you know. So it works both ways.
Yeah, and, you know, Jack, I missed living in the 80s by about 3 months. I was born in March of 1990, but I'm in love with that entire decade. Every song that came out of there, I swear, is one of the greatest ever written. And, you know, I want to ask you, you know, what was that culture like, that rock and roll atmosphere of the 80s? Because, you know, I wasn't able to be around for it, but, you know, I watched the music videos and documentaries, and it just seems so cool to me. You know, what was that like for you?
You know, I just did an interview before I talked to you about half an hour ago. It's funny, we were touching on the same thing. You know, it was so cool to grow up in that era, you know. And fortunately for me, I got kind of like 2 generations worth of music, because, you know, I got to grow up listening to 70s stuff, and then, you know, cut my teeth, you know, making 80s music and you know, and making my living during that time, you know. And it was just a great place to be in time, you know. I mean, music was like, it was as big as it'll ever be. You know, rock and roll will never be that big again. You know, bands are playing arenas all the time, you know, selling millions of records. You know, I mean, everybody's on top of the charts, and, you know, the fans were just always coming out in droves to see it. Women were just beautiful. It was a great time. I mean, it was really a magical time. I don't think we'll ever see again. I know we won't. You know, you never see people selling that many records anymore. It's just the business has changed so much, you know. And you know, it was fun because all our friends, you know, I remember going to Hollywood on any given weekend, you know, and we'd go see Motley Crue, or they'd come see us, or we'd go watch Rat play, or you know, all our friends and other bands were always going and hanging out at each other's shows. So I mean, it wasn't odd to see, you know, the guys in Motley Crue, Doc and Poison, Rat, you know, Great White, all hang out at one show, you know, and it was really, really cool. And this was, you know, this was before we got signed, and everybody was just kind of hanging out, and you knew that something was going to happen. It was going to be explosive, but you didn't know when. And you just kind of, the air was electric, you know. I mean, you'd see thousands of people walking down Sunset Boulevard at 12 o'clock at night, and, you know, just your hair, you know, standing out to, you know, God knows where, and everybody's all rocked out. It was just crazy, man. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it almost seemed like a band of brothers, sort of. And rock and roll, to me, it seemed like it ruled the world during that time period, you know? I mean, it was just...
It really did. You know, it's funny because I've actually used that quote before. We really did. It really did rule the world, you know? I mean, it was such a big thing. You know, I mean, everybody was, you know, listening to rock and roll. Everybody was tuned into MTV, and everybody, you know, in high school, you know, had their band T-shirts on. And it was just really an amazing era, you know, and never to be seen again, you know. I'm sorry to say. I always say, you know, if you missed the 80s, you missed out, you know. I mean, you really did. You know, and I hate to say that, especially to you, you know. But, I mean, you can imagine, you know, how it must have been. I really wish, you know, it would have continued on, you know, for at least another 10 years or so, because the 90s was so morose and just kind of like, depressing and musically, at least for me it was. I didn't, there was nothing about the 90s music that really, really floated my boat,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, man. I'm trying to bring it back somehow. I got my website, my radio show. I blast your tunes all the time, hoping that maybe we can kind of bring back that 80s magic that you guys had. Cause
you know what, I'll tell you, though, a lot of it is coming back around. And I hate to sound like one of those people, it's coming back, because I swore it never would. But, I mean, I'm seeing at our shows, 18-year-old kids, 21-year-old kids, that, even younger. I mean, like, teenagers come out to our shows, and you're going, wow, this is like 3 generations of fans, And yeah, my grandfather really likes your stuff, and I was listening to it. Now, I got all into it. I'm like, whoa, you're into your grandfather's music, It's such a trip. But it's so neat to see the younger people getting into this type of music, because it is fun. It is a good time. It is about enjoying life. It is about hedonism. It is about freedom. It is about all the cool things rock and roll stands for,
Yeah, and it always seemed to me like there were all these terms that kind of flew around whenever people try to talk about the bands. Like, they would get named like glam metal or hair metal. But for me, your band, Great White, was always, straight rock and roll. That's how I saw it. And is that how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. I never really, I always thought that the labeling was kind of a shortcut to thinking, I mean, your categorization is so easy. Just lump them into that category. Oh, yeah, they got long hair. Well, I mean, if that was the case, I guess Led Zeppelin was a hair band, I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's like we're just a rock and roll band trying to have some fun, Sure, we had long hair, and, some of the guys put their hair up a little bit beyond, like, the limits of gravity, but, I mean, other than that, we were just a rock and roll band trying to have fun, I mean, still, to this day, I mean, I'm just out there to have a good time and make good music, and I think Great White was more of just a good hard rock and blues band, and that's what we always were. I always likened us just be like the world's biggest backyard party band, It was like we were just out to have a good time and make people feel good, and that's still what it's all about.
Now, looking back, what do you think was the greatest show you ever did? If you had to pick one, and I know it's going to be tough, but where the fans and the band came together and you guys really, celebrated life through music, where there was a connection, and you look back and it's like, man, that was it,
There's been so many of them, to be honest with you. I could think of one right off the top of my head. We were playing, and it was a place in Chicago, outside of Chicago, actually, a place called Alpine Valley, and it was on the World Series of Rock with Whitesnake, Skid Row, us, a bunch of other bands, and we were playing in front of 40,000 people. And I remember when we did Babe I'ma Leave You, and the place exploded. And it was just, it was one of those moments and one of those shows that I'll never forget. It was just, everything was just, like when you're in the zone, if you're a sports guy or something, every step you take, every move that you make on stage was just like, seemed like it was perfectly timed, It was like, wow, it was an amazing show. And that was one I'll never forget, and that was one of those moments, where you really, you just thank God, that you were given this ability to do what you do, and the wherewithal and the good luck to achieve your dreams. I thank God every day. I mean, I've been so blessed, in my life, more than I deserve. Really. I've had luck beyond luck. Even just to be alive right now at this point is pretty phenomenal. So I'm so grateful every day, for my life and for, the ability to still go out there and sing as well as I do, and I mean that with all humility. I really do. I take no credit for my voice. It's definitely a gift from God, and I'm just so happy He's still letting me use it,
You mentioned 40,000 people. I couldn't even imagine what that would look like from a stage. I mean, what was that?
Yeah, it's pretty intense, man. It's pretty intense. I mean, we played bigger shows than that, but I mean, it was just one of those moments. I remember we played in Schweinfurt, Germany on the Monsters of Rock tour in '89, and there was like 70,000 people. And it was fall. I actually have pictures from behind the stage that were taken behind the drum riser, facing, my back and then the audience. And all you see is just little pins, like they're, little needle marks that were like people's heads. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I mean, just standing there and just you could almost feel the wind from the clapping. You know what I mean? It was so intense. Yeah. You can imagine that.
I think it's safe to say this is probably a good couple times the population of what the town I'm living in right now. I mean, 40,000 people. I think we have about 10,000. So even if we got everybody together, you wouldn't even equal that. To me, that's amazing.
Yeah. That's pretty wild when you think about that, huh?
Yeah.
It kind of puts it in perspective, right?
Yeah, definitely. Now, I want to switch gears for a minute and talk about your two breakthrough albums, the best ones. One's Bitten and Twice Shy. What was the concept behind this? Did it all come from Ian Hunter's song, or how did you guys develop that you'd have One's Bitten and then come out with Twice Shy, kind of like a follow-up, so to speak?
Well, it was just kind of a natural progression. I mean, really. I mean, Once Bitten, Twice Shy, the old saying, obviously. And the song was, courtesy of Izzy Stradlin from Guns N' Roses. He told me about this song, and I was like, wow, are you kidding me, really? I didn't know I'd never heard the song before because it was an East Coast hit. It was never really a West Coast hit. So consequently, I had never heard it, nor had the guys in my band. And we ended up putting it on the record. Never even thinking it was going to be a hit. Just kind of like, well, what a cool idea. We'll lead off with this song. It'll be a great concept. Kind of ties everything together. Yada yada yada. And the next thing you know, the song just blows up and like nobody's business. And I still to this day scratch my head. How huge that song got. And it's a good song, but I never thought it was going to be a hit. So it was really it was even more of a bonus.
That always seems like it happens. A couple guys I talked to, they write the song in like 5 or 10 minutes and they never think much of it. They throw it on the record and boom, overnight it's a top 10.
Well, that's like Save Your Love. I literally wrote that song in 10 minutes. I mean, from top to bottom lyrically, just boom. And I was just like, wow, thank you so much. Because it was just, I knew that song was going to be big. That was one of those songs that I just kind of knew if it got any kind of airplay at all, it would do okay. Even the same with Rock Me as well. I mean, that song was such a bizarre tune, really, when you think about how it's structured. It's not just your typical rock and roll song. It kind of like was really out of the box for the time, and we didn't. Well, I remember listening back to it in the studio. Mark and I were sitting in there, and at the mixing console, and we're listening back to it. And I remember I just looked over him during the middle of the song and went, "Dude, this could be really big." He just kind of went, "Yeah, I know." And then next thing you know, there it was. You just never know. I mean, that's the thing about I've written a lot of songs that I could have swore they're going to be the coolest things since sliced bread, and they never saw the light of day. But you just I've written a lot of hits that were never hits, put it that way. You know what I mean?
Now, Twice Shy was nominated for a Grammy, right? What was that like back in the day?
It was quite a mind blower because I never even thought about it. I never watched the Grammys. I never really watched any of those award shows back in those days. I was too busy, playing. And matter of fact, we didn't even get to watch that night. We were on the road. But it was, quite an amazing honor to be lumped in with the likes of Aerosmith, and it was really a trip. I'm staring. I'm actually looking at my Grammy nomination right now, hanging on the wall in my boat. I still get a kick out of it when I see her. When friends come over, they go, "Wow, Chappelle, I didn't know you guys had that." Yeah. It was quite an honor. Really is. I mean, you think about the amount of people that actually have that distinction in their lives. It's pretty few and far between.
Yeah, now you mentioned you're on a boat, and you really are like rock and roll's pirate because not only do you live on a boat, but you also got a captain's license, right? I mean, you can take out a fairly large ship with the crew. How did that come about? Was this before rock and roll, or was this after?
It was actually when I was younger. I used to work down in San Diego during the summers, and I worked on fishing boats, and I just logged my hours, and I took the 100-ton master's license test, from the Coast Guard. Passed it. So, I can take a 100-ton vessel, with people on it and charter it. I hope I'll never have to do that. I mean, if I ever had to make a living doing something else, I could always do that,
That's awesome.
But yeah, it is fun. It is fun. It's nice. It's nice to have that. You know, what I mean, it's just more of a what's the word I'm looking for here? A testament to just my love of fishing in the ocean. You know.
Yeah. What's that like living on a boat? Because that's where you've lived on a boat for quite a while now, right?
Yeah, it's been over a year now. About a year and a half at this point. I lived on one before. It's great. I mean, the reason I love it so much is because my wife loves it. And that's which is really hard to find a woman that, number one, can live with me, and number two, can live with me on a small place like a boat. I mean, it's not a small boat, but it's not like you have a lot of space to go. I'm going to go in the other room and listen to the stereo, and it's a 45-foot boat. We got plenty of space, but you gotta go into the other room to change your mind, pretty much. It's a great lifestyle. It really is. It's clean. I'm on the water where I love. Everything always smells awesome. The air is fresh. You got porpoises and seals everywhere, and I mean it's pretty amazing. I mean the amount of the life that you see just sitting in the harbor, because where I sit here at the South Bay in Santa Monica, the south of Santa Monica Bay in Redondo, the harbor is really, really small, so it's really close to the open ocean. So, in the harbor itself, there's all kinds of fish. I mean, there's literally, schools of pelagic fish, ocean-going fish that will come through and breeze through here certain times a year. I mean, we've had, like I said, the other day, we had dolphins coming through here, which is really strange. I've never seen them in the harbor before, but, it can happen because you're so close to the open ocean. So it's just a wonderful way to live. I love it. I love taking the boat out. A lot of times my wife will go to work. She's a nurse, and she'll leave for work, and I'll take the boat out and fish all day long and come back in before she gets home. And so it's a great lifestyle for me.
Now, do you go on any big trips? Any plans to maybe cruise around the world?
You know what? No, I wouldn't. I would never really want to do that. If I was going to cruise around the world, I want somebody else driving. I just want to be able to kick back and take in the scenery. And I'm not a sailor, so the only efficient way to really go around the world would either be in a cruise ship or a sailing vessel. But I mean, I'm not really. I've done a lot of cruising, which is a lot of fun down in the Caribbean, and I'll do more of that. But as far as taking trips, yeah, I've been up to Frisco on my boat before, my last boat, and down in Mexico. I'm getting ready to take another trip down to Mexico next spring. We're already planning that to take this boat down there, down to Magdalena Bay, which is about 3/4 of the way down the Baja Peninsula. And do a lot of fishing on the way down, on the way back up, So, yeah, it's I try to do as many trips as I can. And plus, the islands are so close here. All the Channel Islands, Catalina, and all the Channel Islands are really close. So, we take trips out there a lot. So, yeah, it's a blast, man. I love it.
Yeah, I'm jealous of you.
I'd never go on land again. If absolutely have to.
Yeah, I'm definitely jealous because right now it's snowing up here, so you better enjoy the nice weather before you get up here, all right? Because it's about 30 degrees right now. Yeah, so, but
really?
Well, let's talk about the show a little bit coming up. What's the set list looking like? Are we going to hear any new material from you guys, or what's it looking like?
You know what? We've got new material. We haven't. We're not playing it in the set yet because I really want to wait till we put the record out. But yeah, it's just all the hits, man. And a couple surprises in there as well. We're playing almost 2 hours now, sometimes over 2 hours. So it's a nice long show.
Wow, 2 hours. That's a long stretch, man. Now, what do you have to do to warm up before the show? Do you have like any kind of I don't know, I want to call it like a superstition, but any kind of like tricks you do before you take that stage?
Well, yeah, actually, I do a lot of warming up before the show. I start 6 hours before showtime and start, gradually warming my voice up with scales and stuff like that, And then when I get done, I warm my voice down, and that's the only way I can keep it working, 24/7. You really got to take care of yourself if you're a singer, Fortunately, I'm 51 years old now, and my voice, I really haven't lost much. Nothing noticeable. I mean, for me, I can say, yeah, well, there's notes, that I could hit when I was 20 years old, then I can't hit any longer, but I don't need to because those notes aren't in any songs that we have, so it doesn't really matter, But I'm really, really fortunate, and I've been blessed with longevity. And I think, primarily due to the fact that I've had a really good teacher, and who really showed me, how to use my voice and how to warm it up and how to save it, Because if you don't, it's like being a long distance runner, You're not just going to get up and run a decathlon. You're going to stretch your muscles out and, all that kind of stuff before you do it. And then when you get done, you're not just going to stop and sit down. You're going to, you're going to warm your muscles down as well. And the vocal cords are just a muscle, so you have to do the same thing, in order to kind of save them,
Yeah. And, Jack, last time we spoke, you told me that you've been sober for over a year, and, God bless you, man, because I know that's tough. And you're an inspiration to anyone out there who's suffering or who's going through it and needs someone to look up to. So I really want to commend you, man. I think that's awesome. And,
I really appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. And I'd like to say something, expand on your thought there. It really, a lot of people are struggling, with the disease of addiction. And, I just want, anybody out there that's hearing this that's going through that right now, you don't have to live that way. You don't have to be a slave to the disease. There is hope, and there is a better life out there for you. For myself, I can only speak for myself, but for me, I can quit cigarettes in June. And that has been I've been smoking since I was 10 years old. That was harder than quitting drugs. But, there is a better life out there, and you don't have to have drugs or alcohol running your life if you don't want to. It's just a choice. It really is, and it's as simple as that, And you just got to make that choice, and do what you need to do, the work that you need to do to achieve your goal. For me, it's a constant battle. It's every single day. I get up and go, okay, today I'm not going to get screwed up. I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm not going to lose my wife and my, everything I've ever worked for. I'm not going to die today, And I just have to think about it like that, because if I look too far ahead, it gets overwhelming. I don't like the idea that I'll never be able to have a drink again. That pisses me off. It really does. It's like, wait a minute. I want to be able to sit back and have a cocktail like every normal person, but I'm not a normal person, so I can't do that. So I've got to, put priorities. I got to put, first things first. First thing is my sobriety, because without that, I have nothing else.
Yeah, and again, man, God bless you. And to be honest, you are an inspiration to me, because I'm a college student, and I see people get messed up every weekend, and I've kind of taken the stance where I don't want to get involved in that. And people try and get me to go to the bar and drink, and I'm like, you know what? There's a couple people out there. You're definitely one of them, Jack Russell. You're an inspiration for me, and even Joe Walsh and a couple of the guys in rock and roll who've cleaned up the act. I'm like, you know what? If they're doing it, I can do it. So, thank you.
God bless you, man. Hey, you're welcome, and thank you. For me, you're an inspiration. That's huge to me. I remember, my dear friend Jenny Lane. God rest her soul.
Oh yeah, Jenny.
When I woke up from my last surgery, on the 11th of August, last year, and my wife told me, your friend died today of alcohol poisoning. I'm like, what? And I'm just like, I couldn't believe it. As messed up as he was, and I knew how messed up he was, you never really thought it was going to happen, And then I heard so many people saying, hey, word's going around that you're next, I'm like, oh, man, really? I don't want to hear that, So that was, the day I got sober. I woke up out of surgery, and I said, that's it, I'm not doing it anymore. That's just too close to home.
Yeah.
I don't want to end up like my friend, he was such a talented guy, and he had so much more to give.
Yeah,
he took it away from himself. He chose, to kill himself. Basically.
When I heard the news, I think it was about a year ago, it really did break my heart. And anytime I watch his music video, "Heaven Isn't Too Far Away," I almost want to cry, because it's prophetic almost, and it breaks my heart. And I actually spoke with Eric Turner a few weeks ago and Warrant, and I really feel like if Janie was still in the band, they're doing a great job now, but he definitely had more to give, like you said, and it's a shame that he didn't get that chance to do it.
Absolutely, you know, and it breaks my heart for his kids too. You know, I mean, God, he's got some beautiful children, and you know, they'll never, you know their dad. They'll never get to know him beyond what they know him. They'll never, you know, he'll never be able to walk his daughter down the aisle, and there's just so much, you know, that is taken away. You know, not just from the person that dies, of course, you know, everything you ever had and everything you ever will have, you know, but I mean, other than that, you're dead and gone, you know, but it's the people that you leave behind are the ones that are really affected, you know, so much. I mean, you know, like you said, I listen to anytime I hear something on a warrant song on the radio, you know, it brings tears in my eyes, you know, because it's like, wow, man, what a tragic ending to a really beautiful, warm, you know, talented soul, you know, and then it also hurts me because of the fact that, you know, that could have been me, should have been me, you know, the way I lived. I mean, I can't believe that I actually lived through what I did, you know. I've been so blessed and so lucky, you know, because I've had so many chances. And I've, you know, just so many times I've said, well, you know, hell with it. I'm just going to risk it all again, you know, just for the sake of getting loaded. And, you know, I almost killed myself, you know, and thank God, you know, I didn't. And thank God, you know, I have such a wonderful, caring wife, you know, who happens to be a nurse, you know, or I wouldn't be here, you know. So, you know, it's anybody's guess, man. You know, if you mess with, you know, drugs and alcohol, you're always taking a risk, you know.
Yeah, and Jack, I'm definitely happy that you cleaned up and that you're still out there rocking, and you're coming to Newcastle and Pittsburgh. I'm really excited. I'm definitely going to try and make it to the Pittsburgh show, and if I can swing it this week, I'll be at Changes for your show in Newcastle. So
that would be great. I really appreciate it. Make sure you just stop and say hello, okay? I'd love to see you again.
All right, I'll definitely stop by. So, hey, you have a great day and enjoy the nice weather before you get up here in the snow.
All right, thanks for the warning. I appreciate it. All right,
no
brother.
problem. We'll see
God
you.
bless, man.